Hello, and welcome again to another great episode of hashtag Screw the W2. And today's guest, well, you could probably guess statistically he'd be right now, was another guest that I networked through Yona Weiss's LinkedIn challenge, expanding my network and connect with a lot of people out there. So with that, Kathy Jang, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, you
Happy
bet.
to be here.
Thanks. So now maybe Kathy, for my listeners or watchers that maybe aren't, familiar with you or, are connected with you on LinkedIn, can you take us back in time? What was your previous or last W-2 job? What was it? What was it like? Or what was an average day like?
Yeah, so my previous W-2 job was working for Invisalign clear aligners, those
Okay.
aligners that, yeah, straighten your teeth, kind of like braces, but more high tech.
Ah,
Um,
gotcha.
yeah, so, I actually love working and I love the job, but what I didn't love about it was the inability to determine my own schedule.
Hmm.
When I was working there, my sons were really young, just starting grade school, and I have two sons, just shy of 2 years apart.
Okay.
And, I was living in the Bay Area. Commute was crazy. Like sometimes it takes me 2 hours to get home, even though it
Oh,
wasn't really that far from my house.
right.
It was brutal, very brutal, and I couldn't make the events that I wanted to with my sons. And that's what really kind of made me want to get out of it, I guess.
Sure. So, so yeah, you mentioned obviously the commute, and yeah, I can definitely relate with not being in control of your schedule. I still remember the days of my previous W-2 where I point blank, I asked my boss, "What's the point of having us drive three and a half hours round trip for an hour meeting that can easily be done by, well, WebEx? This is before Zoom, and they didn't have an answer for that. And then it was like, oh, why aren't you out selling more? Like, because we just spent a whole day driving for a meeting. That's why.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of nice that the landscape has changed now where Zoom is a lot more common.
Right. Yeah.
So
So
definitely could have appreciated that a few years ago.
exactly. So now you mentioned Kathy, obviously, you had two young sons starting to get more,
Yeah.
activities, and even when you're done with work, it's like, hey, I'm done. Okay, I got a 2 hour drive or commute home. Yippee, great. But was there like any one specific moment or maybe a series of moments where you said, okay, that's it. I have to leave. There's got to be something different out there.
For me, I think it kept building, right?
Okay.
So, uh, when you have a 2 hour commute home every single day, and I was there Monday through Friday, I try to utilize my time as effective as possible, and of course, podcast, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, but it was endless, and I think it felt like I was on survival mode
Mhm.
endlessly, like day to day. And even to get to work, usually it would take me an hour. It was just less traffic to get to work. But it felt like, man, it just felt like I've been through so much by the time I actually got to work, after that 1 hour commute, right? And like dropping off the kids and all of this, it
Mhm.
felt like a full day already before I even got to work. And as days passed, it just felt like it wasn't the life that I wanted,
Okay.
right? Yes, I could do it, if I had to, but it's not something that I was excited about nor found very meaningful to be wasting 3 hours a day, doing that. And it's still not allowing me to have the time that I would like with my family and my kids
Okay.
in particular.
Gotcha. So now once you like you said, kind of built in, just kind of use the analogy of a pressure cooker, it just kind of builds and builds and
Yeah.
builds, and then all of a sudden it, kaplooey. But once you
Yeah.
had that realization, I'm not really passionate about this. I want to have more control over my time. What were your like next steps to, change your life or get out of the rat race?
Yeah. First we tried to make it work, right?
Okay.
Absolutely everything. So we did hire like, uh, I guess a nanny, but basically someone that could pick up our kids and like for sure be there to pick up our kids before their daycare closed or after school program closed because with
Okay.
traffic, you just never know. So we're like,
Right.
okay, we'll make that work. and from a financial perspective, now we had after school care, now we had a nanny. Like it was really adding up, right? And we're like, okay, there's got to be a better way. So we started working more closely with our CPA and a real estate CPA at that to really kind
Okay.
of dig in to say, to understand, hey, what is working? Does it make sense for us to be incurring all of these finances? At what point does it no longer make sense? And
Hmm.
eventually, what we figured out, because he was a real estate specific CPA, that actually my take home pay probably or would be more if I quit my job and became a real estate professional. And that is so ironic,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
Like
It's like I'm gonna make more money by quitting
not
my job. That
working.
doesn't make sense.
Right. And I wish I had done that exercise years before. I mean, it would have changed things, but that was like a definitive moment of like, aha, like what, like our entire plans and outlook for the future now has completely changed. And by that time, I had invested in several single families, um, several multifamilies, and had just started getting active in my multifamily. I obviously am active on the single family stuff, but from a multifamily perspective, I was JVing on my first deal and actively looking for more deals.
Okay.
So it seemed like a good transitory state where, as I got more and more active in real estate, to pull the plug and get out of my W 2 and focus fully on real estate and actually take home more income while I was
Right.
doing that. Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. With that, obviously you made that transition. You met with your CPA. Hey, you'll make more money by quitting your job, which I think is a great position to be in. But once you had that maybe in place or kind of the roadmap, do you remember how long that took, and then what your freedom day was, or when your last day at a W-2 job was?
Yeah. I feel like my husband and I come from a pretty conservative background. And so, even for us to get used to the idea took a little bit of time. I think
Okay.
it was a mental shift because we were educated traditionally in get good grades, get that job,
Yep.
like retire from that job. And so this was, um, again, we've been listening to podcasts, so it wasn't totally foreign, but just not what we were told to do, right? And
Yep.
so we had to get our mind around it first.
Exactly.
Right. And so I think once we were kind of like emotionally prepared, it made things a lot easier because ultimately the reason why we were scaling in real estate because we didn't want to work for 65 until we were 65. So it did make sense, but there was some sort of comfort that we found in having that W2, which now thinking back on it was like it's a total fallacy. But back then, our mindset wasn't quite there yet.
Right.
And so once we were able to shift our mindset and say and understand, actually, we're probably financially more stable having different streams of income and passive income at that. It made the decision a lot easier for me to kind of pull the string and get out of the W-2.
Gotcha. So, and do you remember how many years or how long has it been since you left that W-2 job?
Yeah, so it's been, I don't know, like 4 years now, I
Okay.
would
So,
gather. Yeah,
I
been a
think
little
you're like
time.
the sixth or seventh guest. It's like 2019 just seems to be the year that I left my W-2. The last guest I interviewed left in 2019. It's like, what is it with the stars aligned?
Right.
2019
Yeah.
is the most common year for whatever reason. So,
It worked.
yeah. Now looking back, Kathy, and I know obviously once you got to your job, you almost felt like you had a full days of work,
Yeah.
just getting to the job before you started the job. But looking back, is there anything, in the last 4 years, anything you regret or maybe even miss from your W-2 days at all?
Man, I think what I love the most about my W-2 was the people, right?
Okay.
But what I found with the commercial real estate community is full of the most incredible people in life. And so I am so thankful for the community that we do have in commercial real estate. Uh, so open minded and everyone has an abundance mindset, and
Mm.
we're here as biggest cheerleaders for each other, not looking at each other as competition,
Yeah.
but trying to offer whatever resources we have.
Mm.
So, I do miss the teammates that were at the W2, but man, have I met incredible people along this ride too. So,
Right.
still loving just community in general, and the CRE community at that.
Yeah. Well, I think like you said, with the mindset change, I think it was Jim Rohn that said you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you're spending time with people with similar interests, similar mindset,
There
then
you
a
go.
lot easier to change than, well, I'm hanging around all these people that hate their job and working 40 hours a week. Why in the world can I not leave my job?
Right, right. And now, I'm surrounded by people that start their day off in gratitude, are looking to help support each other, and really are, it is a different mindset, period, because these are people that have achieved financial freedom, people that are kind of doing what they want in life. And
Right.
I think there's so much to be grateful for when you're in that position.
Yeah, I agree. Now, on the flip side, you kind of, already, alluded to this a little bit, but, in the 4 years that you have left the W-2, what's been the, greatest thing about it or the best thing about that journey since then? Or like maybe what's the one thing that,
Yeah.
gosh, if I had to go back to a W-2 job, I'd never be able to give this up again.
Yeah, so I think initially for me, it was achieving financial freedom, like the one big thing that I wanted, right? Just to make sure that my family was secure financially.
Mhm.
But what was really interesting was that when we were able to achieve financial freedom, and by that I mean to be able to cover like our basic needs for our
Mhm.
family, and be okay, right? For both, my husband and I, all our kids' expenses, and now two puppies as well.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and so once we did achieve that, though, my goals I found changed actually. So
Yeah.
once I knew that my family would be taken care of financially, it became more about how can I impact others, impact the community.
Mm.
And so I still, don't get me wrong, work hard these days now, and maybe just as hard as in my W-2. But what I find is it's really fulfilling because it's on my terms,
Yep.
on my schedule. And the money that I earned, I try to give to as much, financially, to the community, to causes that are near and dear to my heart that I believe in. And that, I mean, is such a huge driver, right? Because it's I'm able to, I think, deliver to things that are so meaningful to me, and it's a huge, driver for me.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah,
Kathy, if there's any, whether they're have a similar situation, 2 hour work commute or 4 hour round trip or whatever the case may be, or just not satisfied with their job, just really want to, uh, make a change, make a difference, step out of that, if you will. But for whatever reason, they just feel stuck. Oh, I can't leave
yeah,
because I have student loans to pay off, or I would
yeah.
be giving up my insurance or the security, or whatever the case may be. What, maybe words of advice or encouragement would you give them to, for lack
Yeah,
of a better term, make that leap of faith, so to speak?
right. And I understand that feeling of being scared and fearful of making that leap, because it does feel huge, and it felt huge for me too. And I think for everybody, that leap can look different. And I would encourage them to think through what would make them feel safe, I guess, in their own terms. So for me, what I didn't talk about earlier was that my W-2 actually asked to retain me, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted to be a real estate professional. But I
Sure.
was able to work with them to define what that might be to make it a win-win situation for both of us.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So yeah, so for me, because I wanted to do that real estate professional designation, that meant I could only work less than half the hours of each week
Right.
with my former W-2, and I defined what that meant, what projects I would take, how many hours I would do,
Okay.
and that worked as actually a great stepping stone because I had one foot in, one foot out, I was able to achieve the real estate professional designation, but
Okay.
continue with my skill sets in my previous job, just in case this whole
Sure.
real estate thing didn't work out. Right. And so, from a comfort level, looking back on it, I think that helped alleviate some of the fears that I had because I was able to, like, if I had to, be able to pivot back if I needed to,
Right.
and that's going to look different for everybody. But I think if people just need to think through what would make them most comfortable with it and start making those steps, right? Don't, because the worst thing is to, like, I often tell people, like, think of what the worst thing that could possibly be if you were to try to take that leap. And
Mhm.
oftentimes the answer is they would still be in the shoes that they are in today, right? And so you might as well start making momentum to move further, right? Because you'll,
Right.
like, worst case scenario, you're just stuck where you are today.
Yeah.
So, if you think of it in that terms, then it kind of alleviates some of the fears.
Sure. No, it makes sense. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. Now, Kathy, and as we close this out, and again, I want to thank you for taking the time to share your story with my listeners. I've started dubbing this the hashtag unscrewed moment. If you want to share any new projects you're working on, how people can reach out, find you, connect with you,
Yeah.
or maybe even any projects that you're hoping to complete by this year going into 2024.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. We actually do have a fund that is open right now.
Okay.
And yeah, so that fund was going to have 6 to 10 multifamily value add properties in it. We are in contract for 2 of them currently, and the
Okay.
2 properties are based out of Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, cool. I like
Um,
Tucson too.
yeah, yeah. It's just in my backyard. I live in Phoenix right now, so it's a 2 hour
Okay.
drive. Definitely fantastic area, and it's open for funding right now.
Okay.
And people can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Kathy with a K, Jang,
All right.
Jang.
Sounds good. And I'll sure have the LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Obviously, if you're listening
Appreciate it.
now or 6 months from now, 6 years from now, open right now could be taken very different ways. But I'm sure Kathy will probably have similar funds or projects whenever you are listening to this and want to reach out. So, with that,
Absolutely.
Kathy, want to say thank you again for reaching out and thanks for sharing your story on how you said screw the W 2.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your time.